I walked into my own home during a family planning meeting I wasn't invited to, only to overhear my children dividing my future inheritance as if I already left their lives. The front door had been unlocked. That should have been my first warning. I'd gone to the hardware store for a replacement washer for the kitchen sink, something that took all of 20 minutes, and when I came back, there were 3 cars in my driveway that shouldn't have been there. Devin's black Audi, Riley's white Range Rover, that ridiculous Tesla that belonged to Tripp, Riley's husband, the one with the vanity plate that said, influence. I stood on my own porch, keys in hand, and heard voices coming from my dining room. The dining room I'd built myself 30 years ago, back when I still believed in things like family dinners and traditions that mattered. The assisted living place in Nevada looks perfect, Riley said. Her voice carried that practiced calm she used with her wellness coaching clients. Far enough away that we won't have to visit constantly, but nice enough that we won't feel guilty. I froze. How much are we talking? That was Devin, my son, always leading with money. About $4,000 a month, Riley answered, but once we sell the house, that's covered for at least 3 years, maybe 4 if we're smart about investments. My hand tightened around the door handle. I didn't turn it. Something told me to wait, to listen, to understand exactly what was happening before I made myself known. And the power of attorney paperwork? Harper's voice now, Devin's wife, always chasing the details that made her look important. Gerald said it was good to go. Signed and notarized, Devin said. I could hear the satisfaction in his voice. Dad won't even know what hit him. We just need to get him to sign one more form, the consent for medical decisions, and we're golden. He's not going to sign it willingly, Tripp said. The old man's stubborn as hell. Then we forge it, Riley said, like she was suggesting what to order for lunch. Who's going to check? It's not like he has friends who'd question it. Mrs. Kowalski next door thinks he's already losing it because he forgot to bring in his trash cans twice last month. They laughed. All 4 of them laughed. I stood outside my own home, bags from the hardware store cutting into my palm, and listened to my children discuss erasing me from my own life. What about his tools? Devin asked. Those old engineering manuals, the equipment in the garage? Junk, Riley said. Donate it, or trash it. Who cares? Those tools had been my father's. I'd used them to build the deck where Devin took his first steps. I'd used them to construct the treehouse where Riley had her 8th birthday party. The house should list at $560, maybe $575. Devin continued, back to business. Market's hot right now. We could have it sold in 30 days if we price it right. And Dad? Harper asked. We tell him it's temporary, Riley said. That we're worried about him, that it's just until he gets stronger. By the time he realizes what's happening, the house will be sold and he'll be in Nevada. Done deal. He lived too long anyway, Devin muttered. Most people his age are already gone. We should have been set up years ago. That was the moment my heartbeat changed tempo. It stopped sounding like fear. It sounded like plans. I backed away from the door, quiet as I'd learned to be during my years working construction sites where one wrong step could cost you a finger or worse. I walked around the side of the house, through the gate I'd installed myself, past the garden my late wife had planted before cancer took her 5 years ago. I stood in my backyard and looked at the house I'd built with my own hands, the house where I'd raised 2 children who were now inside discussing how to dispose of me like I was expired milk. My phone buzzed. A text from Devin. Hey Dad, stopping by later today. Need to talk to you about something important. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I deleted it. I spent the next hour in my car, parked 2 streets over, thinking. My engineering background had taught me to approach problems systematically, identify the variables, calculate the forces at play, find the weak points in the structure. My children had just given me all the information I needed. When I finally drove back home, their cars were gone. The house was empty, silent. Everything looked exactly as I'd left it, but nothing felt the same. I walked through rooms that suddenly felt like a museum of my own life, each object a reminder of what I'd built and what was being taken away. The dining room table where we'd eaten thousands of meals, the window frame I'd replaced after Devin hit a baseball through it when he was 12, the kitchen where Riley had baked cookies with her mother every Sunday. I opened my laptop and started researching assisted living facilities in Nevada, power of attorney laws, real estate procedures, how to revoke documents, how to protect yourself when your own family turns predator. The internet is a beautiful thing when you know what you're looking for. By midnight, I had a list of names, lawyers, witnesses, people who could verify that I was of sound mind and body, that I had no intention of going anywhere, that I damn sure didn't sign any documents giving my children control over my life. I also had another list. This one was longer, more detailed. It was a list of everything I knew about my children's lives, their businesses, their secrets, their lies, the corners they'd cut, the people they'd used, the image they projected versus the reality they lived. If they wanted to play this game, I'd play it better. I was a structural engineer for 35 years. I knew how to find the load-bearing walls. I knew where to apply pressure to make the whole thing collapse. And I knew exactly where to start. At 3 a.m, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and a yellow legal pad. The house creaked around me, familiar sounds that I'd heard for decades. The refrigerator hum, the settling of old wood, the distant bark of a neighbor's dog. I started writing, not a letter, not a plea, not some pathetic appeal to their better nature, because clearly that nature didn't exist. I wrote a strategy. My children thought they were dealing with an old man who'd lost his edge, someone too tired and broken to fight back. They thought I'd go quietly, sign whatever papers they put in front of me, grateful for whatever scraps of dignity they allowed me to keep. They were wrong. I'd spent my entire career calculating weight distribution, stress points, and structural integrity. I knew how to bring down buildings safely, systematically, piece by piece, until nothing remained but rubble. I could do the same to reputations. The sunrise found me still at that table, pages of notes spread out in front of me. I'd mapped out their vulnerabilities like architectural blueprints. Devin's questionable real estate deals, Riley's fake credentials, Harper's social climbing built on lies, Tripp's influencer career that was mostly smoke and mirrors. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Devin. "Dad, you home? Need to stop by this morning." I looked at that message and smiled. Let them come. Let them try to execute their plan. Let them think they were in control. I texted back, "Sure, I'll be here." Then I got up, showered, dressed, and prepared to become someone my children had never seen before. Someone who played to win. Before we go any further, hit the hype button. Take a second to subscribe and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? 2 days later, I sat across from Dale Brinker at the corner booth of Murphy's Diner, the same booth we'd occupied every Thursday morning for the past 10 years. Dale had been a cop for 32 years before retiring, and he still had that cop look, the eyes that noticed everything, the stillness that came from years of watching people lie. "You look like hell," he said, dumping 3 sugars into his coffee. "Thanks. You always know how to make me feel better." "What's going on, Ethan?" I told him. Everything. The overheard conversation, the plans, the paperwork, the Nevada facility. I watched his face as I talked, and I saw what I needed to see. Anger. "Jesus Christ," he said when I finished. "Your own kids." "Yeah." "You sure about all this? Maybe you misunderstood." "Dale. They said I lived too long." He was quiet for a moment, stirring his coffee even though the sugar had long since dissolved. "What do you need?" "Information. You still know people at the courthouse?" "Some. I need to know what documents they've filed, what they're planning legally, and I need it fast. Dale pulled out his phone. Give me until tomorrow. I'll owe you. Damn right you will. He looked at me hard. Ethan, this is your family we're talking about. You go down this road, there's no coming back from it. They already burned that bridge, I said. I'm just watching it collapse. Dale called me the next afternoon. You better sit down for this. I was already sitting, but I gripped the arm of my chair harder. They've been planning this for 6 months, Dale said. Maybe longer. They filed preliminary paperwork for power of attorney back in March. They've consulted with 2 different lawyers, one here, one in Nevada. And Ethan? They've already got a buyer lined up for your house. The room tilted. What? Pre-qualified buyer. Real estate investor. Your son's been talking to him since April. The listing isn't public yet, but it's ready to go. Soon as they get you out, the sign goes up. I couldn't breathe right. 6 months. While I'd been living my normal life, going to the store, watching TV, working in my garden, my children had been systematically planning to erase me. There's more, Dale said. Devin's been telling people around the neighborhood that you're getting forgetful, that you're not managing your finances well. Harper told the ladies at her yoga studio that you're showing signs of dementia. I'm 58 years old. Doesn't matter. They're building a narrative. When they finally make their move, everyone will think they're being responsible children taking care of their declining father. I was quiet for a long time. Ethan, you still there? Yeah, I'm here. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, I said. But that was a lie. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I started with the small things, the details most people wouldn't notice. That weekend, I drove past Riley's office, a converted house in the trendy part of town where she ran her wellness coaching business. The sign out front said, Riley Marrow Nolan, certified life coach, nutrition specialist, mindfulness expert. I took pictures of the sign. Then I went home and spent 3 hours researching certification boards and licensing requirements. Riley had exactly 0 legitimate certifications. The credentials she listed on her website, bought from online diploma mills. The training programs she claimed to have completed didn't exist. The testimonials on her homepage, stock photos with fake names. I documented everything, screenshots, saved pages, evidence. Next was Devin. His real estate business was smaller, more local, but he'd built a reputation as the guy who could sell anything. I started going through public records, sales data, property transfers, buyer complaints. I found a pattern. Devin had a habit of creating artificial urgency. He'd tell buyers that multiple offers were coming in when they weren't. He'd pressure sellers to accept low bids by claiming the market was turning. He'd inflate property values in his listings and deflate them when he was buying. Nothing technically illegal, just unethical enough to destroy his reputation if the right people found out. Harper was easier. She was obsessed with social media, with being seen as someone important. She posted constantly about her perfect life, her perfect family, her perfect opinions on everything from politics to parenting. But I'd been watching her for years. I knew what she was really like. I knew about the credit cards she hid from Devin. I knew about the time she rear-ended someone in a parking lot and drove away. I knew about the nasty things she said about other people when she thought no one was listening. And I'd started recording those conversations, legally. In our state, only one party needed to consent to recording, and that party was me. Tripp was the wild card. He managed social media influencers, and his whole career was built on smoke and mirrors. But smoke disappears when you shine the right light on it. I created fake accounts and started following the influencers he represented. I documented when their follower numbers were inflated by bots. I tracked when their engagement was artificially boosted. I found the posts where they promoted products they'd never used, made claims they couldn't back up. And I found something better. Tripp had been using my name, my house, my background as a successful engineer to help pitch his clients to sponsors. He'd told several companies that he had family connections in the engineering field, that his father-in-law was a respected professional who could provide credibility. He'd used me as a prop in his con game. By the end of the week, I had folders full of evidence. Not enough to send anyone to prison. I didn't want that. Prison was too clean, too final. Prison meant the story was over. I wanted something slower, more painful, more permanent. I wanted them to lose everything that mattered to them while staying free to watch it happen. The following Tuesday, Devin showed up at my house unannounced. I was in the garage, organizing tools, when I heard his car in the driveway. "Hey, Dad," he called out, walking in like he owned the place, which I suppose he thought he soon would. "Devin, you got a minute? Need to talk to you about something." "Sure." I set down the wrench I was holding and faced him. He pulled out his phone, swiped through something, then looked up with his professional real estate smile. "So, I've been thinking about your situation here. This house is getting too big for you, right? Too much maintenance, too much yard work." "I like yard work." "Yeah, but Dad, you're not getting any younger. And Mom's been gone for 5 years now. Don't you think it's time to downsize? Move somewhere easier to manage?" "Like where?" "Well, Riley and I have been looking at some options. There's this great assisted living community in Nevada." "No." He blinked. "What?" "I said no, Devin. I'm not going anywhere." "Dad, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. This is my house. I built it. I'm staying in it." His smile faded. "Look, we're just trying to help. We're worried about you. You're here all alone. You're not getting any younger. And honestly, people are starting to notice that you're slipping." "Slipping how?" "You forgot to bring in your trash cans. Twice. Mrs. Kowalski mentioned it." "So I forgot my trash cans. That makes me incompetent?" "It's not just that. You're getting forgetful. You're not managing your money well." "My finances are fine." "Are they? Because Riley mentioned you were confused about some bills." "Riley mentioned that, did she? When exactly did she see my bills?" Devin hesitated. Just for a second, but I saw it. The moment he realized he'd said too much. "We're just concerned," he said, recovering. "That's all. We want what's best for you. What's best for me is to stay in my house." "Dad, this conversation is over, Devin." I turned back to my tools. I heard him standing there behind me, probably trying to figure out his next move. Finally, he left. But I knew this wasn't finished. This was just the opening round. I went inside and added another note to my yellow legal pad. They're speeding up the timeline. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about the years I'd spent building a life for my family. The overtime I'd worked to pay for Riley's college, the loans I'd co-signed for Devin's first business, the wedding I'd paid for when Harper's family couldn't afford it. I'd given them everything I had, and they were going to take the rest. At 2 a.m, I got up and went to the garage. I found the box I was looking for in the back corner, behind the old paint cans and garden supplies. My father's tools, the ones Devin had called junk. I pulled them out one by one. The level with the brass fittings, the handsaw with the carved handle, the measuring tape that was older than I was. My father had been a carpenter. He'd taught me everything he knew, and I'd taught my children everything I knew. Or tried to. Apparently the only lesson that stuck was how to take. I held my father's level in my hands and remembered him showing me how to check if something was true. "Level means honest," he'd said. "If it's not level, it's lying to you." I looked around my garage, my tools, my workbench, my life packed into organized shelves and labeled boxes, and I made a decision. If they wanted war, they'd get it. But it would be fought on my terms, with my timing, using weapons they'd never see coming. I was a structural engineer. I knew how to build things that lasted. I also knew how to make them fall. The storage unit was in an industrial area on the far side of town, one of those places with rows of orange doors and combination locks. Unit 247, according to the paperwork I'd found in Devin's car when I'd casually walked past it in a parking lot 3 days ago. I drove there on Sunday afternoon, knowing from their social media posts that Devin and Riley were both at a family brunch on the other side of town. The facility had cameras, but I didn't care. I wasn't doing anything illegal. I was just checking on my own property, because everything in that storage unit used to be mine. I'd gotten the combination from a simple trick, watching Devin's fingers as he typed it into his phone in a video Riley had posted. Old engineering habit. I was good with numbers and patterns. The lock clicked open. I rolled up the door. The unit was full. Boxes, furniture, tools, equipment. Everything they'd been slowly stealing from my house over the past 6 months. My father's tools were there, stacked carelessly in a corner. Photo albums from my marriage, my wife's jewelry box, a vintage record player that had belonged to her mother. Things that had no monetary value but mattered to me. Things they'd decided were junk. I stood there for a long moment, looking at my life packed into a storage unit, and I felt something shift inside me. Up until now, part of me had been holding back. Part of me had still been thinking of them as my children, still hoping there was some explanation, some way this could be fixed. That part died right there. I pulled out my phone and took pictures of everything. Documentation, evidence, proof of theft, even if I'd never use it in court. Then I loaded everything I wanted back into my truck. My father's tools, the photo albums, my wife's jewelry box, personal items that meant something. I left the furniture. They could have that. But everything with sentimental value came with me. I was loading the last box when I heard a car pull up outside. Footsteps. Voices. Devin and Tripp. I didn't run. I didn't hide. I just stood there, waiting, as they appeared at the open door. "What the hell are you doing here?" Devin demanded. "Taking back my property." "That's not your property anymore." "Really? You want to have that conversation? About who owns what? Because I have documentation showing you removed these items from my home without permission. That's called theft, Devin. We were helping you. You couldn't take care of your own things." "Stop lying," I said calmly. "There's no one here to perform for. Just tell me the truth for once in your miserable life." His face flushed red. "You know what? I'm done with this. You want to be difficult? Fine. We'll see what the judge says on Tuesday. I look forward to it." Tripp stepped forward. "Look, man, this doesn't have to be ugly. Just sign the papers, let Devin help you manage things, and we can all move on. I'd rather burn everything I own than give any of you control over a single dollar of it." "You're making a mistake," Tripp said. "No. I made a mistake 30 years ago when I thought my children would grow up to be decent people. But I'm correcting that now." Devin's hands clenched into fists. For a second, I thought he might actually try to hit me. I almost hoped he would. It would give me legal grounds to file assault charges, and that would make everything else so much easier. But Tripp grabbed his arm. "Not worth it, man. Let him take his junk." I loaded the last box into my truck and closed the tailgate. Then I turned back to them. "Tuesday morning, 10 a.m., I'll see you in court. Bring your best arguments. You're going to need them." I drove away and watched them in my rearview mirror, standing there in the storage facility parking lot, probably trying to figure out what had just happened to their carefully constructed plan. Back at the motel, I called Margaret Chen. They confronted me at a storage unit where they've been keeping my property. "Did they threaten you?" "Just posturing, but I have witnesses if I need them. The facility has cameras." "Good, that helps our case. They're getting desperate, which means they're going to make mistakes. Speaking of which, I got the documents for the guardianship petition. Want to hear the best part?" "Tell me." "Devin claims you're suffering from paranoid delusions, that you believe your family is conspiring against you." I laughed. Actually laughed. He's claiming I'm paranoid while simultaneously proving that I'm not. "Exactly. A judge is going to tear this apart. But Ethan, we need you looking stable and rational on Tuesday. Can you do that?" I can do that. Good. And Ethan? Maybe consider moving back into your house. Living in a motel doesn't exactly scream mental stability. I'll think about it. But I didn't move back. Not yet. I liked the motel. I liked the distance it gave me, the perspective. From here, I could watch my children scrambling, panicking, making worse and worse decisions. I could watch their world collapse. Monday night, I prepared for court. I printed documents, organized evidence, reviewed my testimony with Margaret. I showered, shaved, laid out my best suit. I also did something else. I sent carefully crafted messages to specific people, not threats, not warnings, just information. To Riley's remaining clients, links to news articles about wellness coaching fraud. To Devin's real estate contacts, anonymous tips about complaints filed with the state board. To Harper's social circle, one more audio clip, carefully edited, of her saying something particularly nasty about her best friend. To Tripp's business partners, documentation of inflated engagement numbers and fake followers. I didn't do this out of anger anymore. I was past anger. This was calculation. This was engineering. This was removing the load-bearing supports, one by one, until the whole structure had no choice but to fall. The news spread fast. Small town, big scandal. By Wednesday afternoon, everyone knew that Devin Marrow had tried to have his father declared incompetent, that it had blown up in court, that the DA was investigating possible elder abuse charges. The local newspaper ran a story. Not front page, but prominent enough. Local real estate agent faces elder abuse investigation. They didn't name me directly, called me an unnamed family member, but everyone knew who I was. I drove past Devin's office that afternoon. The parking lot was empty except for his car. The sign out front. Devin Marrow Real Estate, your trusted partner in home sales. Suddenly looked ironic. Riley's wellness coaching business collapsed completely. Her website went dark. Her social media accounts stopped posting. The few remaining clients canceled. Harper's Instagram, which had been her pride and joy, became a graveyard. She'd deleted most of her posts, changed her account to private. The comments on what remained were brutal. People she'd called friends were asking questions, sharing stories, revealing that they'd received anonymous messages about her behavior. Tripp lost 2 more clients. His influencer management business was circling the drain. I watched it all happen from a safe distance, tracking the fallout, measuring the damage, but I still wasn't satisfied. They'd tried to erase me from my own life. A failed court case and some bad publicity wasn't enough. They needed to understand, really understand, what it felt like to have everything taken from you. So I kept going. I moved back into my house, but not before installing a proper security system. Cameras, locks, alarms. I wasn't taking any chances. The house felt different now. Empty in a way it hadn't been before. My father's tools were back in the garage where they belonged. My wife's jewelry box sat on my dresser. The photo albums were on the shelf, but the memories were tainted. Every room held echoes of betrayal. The dining room where they'd plotted against me. The driveway where Devin had tried to manipulate me. The front door where Riley had let herself in without permission. I couldn't live here anymore, not long term. But I wasn't ready to leave yet, not until I finished what I started. That week I received a call from Dale. You hear about Devin? What now? State Real Estate Commission suspended his license pending their own investigation. He's got 30 days to respond to complaints, but even if he does, he's probably done. No one's going to hire an agent who's under investigation for trying to defraud his own father. Good. Ethan, are you okay? I mean, I know they deserved it, but these are still your kids. They stopped being my kids the moment they decided I'd lived too long. He was quiet for a moment. Just don't let this consume you, all right? You won. Don't let winning turn you into something you're not. But maybe I already had. Maybe that was the point. I spent the next few days consolidating my position. I met with a new financial advisor and restructured everything: accounts, investments, beneficiaries. I removed my children from my will entirely, left everything to charity instead. I met with Margaret Chen and filed formal restraining orders against Devin, Riley, Harper, and Tripp. They were prohibited from coming within 500 feet of my home or contacting me in any way. I also did something else. I made copies of everything, all my evidence, all my documentation, all my recordings, and put them in a safe deposit box with instructions that if anything happened to me, they were to be released to the authorities and the media. Insurance policy. On Friday, I got an email. From Riley. Subject line: "Please, Dad." I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity got the better of me. "Dad, I know you won't respond to this, but I have to try. I'm so sorry for everything. We were wrong. We were selfish and stupid and cruel. I don't know what we were thinking. Actually, I do know. We were thinking about money, about our own lives, about everything except you. There's no excuse for what we did. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know that I understand now what we took from you. Your dignity, your autonomy, your trust, everything that mattered. My business is gone. My marriage is falling apart. Tripp blames me for getting him involved in this mess. I've lost most of my friends. I deserve all of it. But Dad, I miss you. Not your money, not your house. You. I miss calling you on Sunday mornings. I miss your sarcastic comments about my life choices. I miss having a father. I know I don't deserve it, but if you ever want to talk, I'm here. Riley. I read it twice, looking for the manipulation, the angle, the trick. Maybe there wasn't one. Maybe she actually meant it. It didn't matter. I deleted the email and blocked her address. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. And some people, once they show you who they really are, don't deserve a second chance. The weekend passed quietly. I worked in my garden, fixed some things around the house, watched TV. Normal life, or a simulation of it. Monday morning, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Mr. Marrow?" A woman's voice, professional, unfamiliar. "Yes." "This is Jennifer Walton from Channel 7 News. I'm doing a story on elder abuse and financial exploitation of seniors. I was wondering if you'd be willing to speak on camera about your experience with your children." My first instinct was to say no, to keep this private, contained between us. But then I thought about other people, other parents with adult children who might be planning the same thing, other families where greed was eating away at trust. "Yes," I said, "I'll talk to you." The interview was scheduled for Wednesday afternoon. They came to my house with a camera crew, lights, microphones. Jennifer Walton was in her 40s, sharp and professional, with the kind of presence that came from years of telling difficult stories. She asked questions. I answered them honestly. I told her about overhearing the conversation, about the forged documents, about the plans to send me to Nevada. I told her about the storage unit, the court case, the investigation. I didn't perform. I didn't exaggerate. I just told the truth. "What do you want people to know?" she asked at the end. "That this happens more than people think, that adult children can be predators, that if something feels wrong, it probably is, and that you don't have to accept it. You can fight back." "Do you have any relationship with your children now?" "No, and I don't want one." "Do you regret that?" I thought about it, really thought about it. I regret raising people who could do this. I regret not seeing who they really were sooner. But cutting them out of my life? No, that's the sanest decision I've made in years. The interview aired Friday night. I didn't watch it, but Dale did. He called me after. "You came across well, strong, clear, sympathetic. This is going to blow up." He was right. By Saturday morning, the story was everywhere. Local news picked it up. Regional outlets ran with it. A few national websites featured it. Suddenly, I wasn't just Ethan Marrow, retired engineer. I was a symbol, a cautionary tale, a survivor. My phone started ringing. Other news outlets wanting interviews. A podcast about family dynamics. A lawyer from a different state asking if I'd testify in a similar case. I said no to most of it. The story was out there. That was enough. But the publicity had an effect I hadn't anticipated. It made my children radioactive. Whatever small chance Devin had of salvaging his real estate career died when clients saw him on the news as the son who'd tried to defraud his father. Riley's attempts to restart her coaching business under a different name failed when someone recognized her and posted about it online. Harper's social media presence became impossible to maintain. Every post, every comment, someone would bring up the story. Tripp's influencer clients dropped him entirely. No one wanted to be associated with someone involved in an elder abuse scandal. They were finished. Not just damaged, finished. And I'd done it without sending anyone to prison, without physical violence, without breaking any laws. I'd just told the truth and let the consequences unfold. That's when I realized I'd won. Not just the court case, not just the publicity battle. Everything. I'd taken back my life, destroyed theirs, and emerged as the righteous victim rather than the villain. It should have felt better than it did. 2 weeks later, I was in my garage organizing tools when I heard a car pull into the driveway. I tensed, checked the security cameras on my phone. It was Riley's Range Rover. She was violating the restraining order. I could call the police, have her arrested. Part of me wanted to, but another part wanted to hear what she had to say. I walked to the front door and opened it before she could knock. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, pulled back in a messy ponytail. No makeup, sweatshirt and jeans instead of her usual carefully curated outfits. She'd lost weight. "You're not supposed to be here," I said. "I know, I'm sorry, I need to talk to you." "We have nothing to talk about." "Please, Dad, 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I should have said no, should have closed the door, called the police, enforced the boundary I'd established. Instead, I stepped aside. 5 minutes. Then you leave and you never come back. She walked into the house like she was visiting a stranger's home, looking around at the space where she'd grown up, like she'd never seen it before. We stood in the living room. I didn't offer her a seat. "Say what you came to say." She took a shaky breath. "Tripp left me. He said this whole thing destroyed his career and it's my fault. He filed for divorce last week." "I'm sorry to hear that." "No, you're not. And you shouldn't be. He's right. It is my fault." She looked at me. "My business is gone. My friends are gone. My marriage is gone. Everything I built is gone." "You built it on lies, Riley. It was going to collapse eventually." "I know that now." She wiped her eyes. "I keep trying to figure out when we became people who could do this to you. Was it gradual? Was there a moment? I don't even know." "I think it was gradual," I said. "Small compromises, small lies, small justifications." She flinched. "I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I understand what we did. And I'm sorry. Genuinely, truly sorry." "Okay? That's it? Just okay?" "What do you want me to say, Riley? That it's fine? That we can move past this?" "We can't. You and your brother tried to erase me from my own life. You planned it for months. You lied to people about me. You stole my property. You forged documents. You told people I'd lived too long." "I know. Do you? Because here's what you don't seem to understand. This isn't about your business failing or your marriage ending or your friends abandoning you. This is about trust, about family, about knowing that the people who are supposed to love you most in the world see you as nothing more than an obstacle between them and your money." She was crying now, really crying, and I felt nothing. No sympathy, no regret. Nothing. "I can't fix this," she said. "Can I?" "No." "Is there anything I can do?" "Leave. Honor the restraining order. Move on with your life and never contact me again." She nodded, wiping her face. He's going to lose his house. Harper's husband is staying with her, but barely. He blames her for everything. I didn't ask. I know. I just thought you should know what's happening to us. I know what's happening to you, Riley. I made it happen. She stared at me. What? Did you think this was all accidental? That your business collapsed on its own? That your credentials got investigated by chance? That your friends just happened to find out about your lies? You did that? All of it. Systematically. Carefully. With the same attention to detail I used when I was designing buildings. I identified your weak points and I applied pressure until everything collapsed. Why? Because you tried to bury me alive, so I buried you instead. She looked like I'd hit her. My God, what happened to you? You did. You and Devin and Harper and Tripp. You turned me into this. You wanted a villain? Congratulations, you created one. I didn't want... Get out. Dad, get out of my house, Riley. Your 5 minutes are up. She left. I watched through the security camera as she sat in her car for a long time before finally driving away. I should have felt victorious, vindicated, satisfied. Instead, I felt hollow. That night, I sat in my dark living room thinking about what I'd become. I'd started this wanting justice, wanting to protect myself, wanting to show my children that I wasn't weak or helpless or easy to dispose of. But somewhere along the way, it had turned into something else. Revenge, destruction, a systematic dismantling of their lives that went beyond self-defense. I'd become the villain I'd accused them of trying to create. And the worst part? I didn't regret it. They'd earned every bit of what happened to them. Every business failure, every lost relationship, every public humiliation. They'd planned to do worse to me. I just did it better. The next morning, I got a call from Margaret Chen. Ethan, we need to talk. About what? About ending this. You've won, decisively. The restraining orders are in place, your estate is protected, your reputation is restored. But if you keep pushing, if your children can demonstrate that you're actively working to destroy their lives rather than just defending your own, it could become a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where they can argue harassment, where the DA starts looking at your actions instead of theirs. You don't want that. So you're saying I should stop. I'm saying you've achieved your objectives. Don't let this turn into something that hurts you. All right. I mean it, Ethan. No more anonymous tips, no more leaking information, no more clever schemes. Just live your life and let them live what's left of theirs. I understand. I hung up and thought about her advice. She was right, of course. I'd won. Continuing to attack them served no purpose except satisfying my own need for revenge. So I stopped. I deleted my fake social media accounts. I stopped monitoring their activities. I stopped planning my next move. It was harder than I expected. For months, my entire focus had been on strategy, on finding their weak points, on executing my plan. Without that focus, I felt aimless. I started going to the gym, working out, running, pushing my body until it hurt, until I was too tired to think. I reconnected with old friends, people I'd neglected while I was consumed with my war against my children. I started designing again, not professionally, just for fun. Drawing building plans, solving structural problems, using the skills that had defined my career. Slowly, day by day, I built a new life. One without children, without family, but without betrayal, too. It wasn't the life I'd imagined when I was younger, when Devin and Riley were kids and the future looked full of grandchildren and holidays and growing old surrounded by people who loved me. But it was honest, it was mine, and it was free. 3 months after Riley's visit, I put my house on the market. Not because I needed the money, because I needed a fresh start. This house held too many ghosts, too many memories that had been poisoned. It sold in 2 weeks. I made a good profit, more than enough to buy something new somewhere else. I chose a small town 2 hours away, a place where no one knew me, where I could be just Ethan Marrow, retired engineer, instead of Ethan Marrow, the father who'd destroyed his children's lives. I bought a modest house with a big garage and a workshop. I filled it with my father's tools, my books, my things. I started over, but I never forgot. Every time I used my father's tools, I remembered why I had them back. Every time I looked at my wife's jewelry box, I remembered what my children had planned to do with it. The memories were scars. They didn't hurt anymore, but they never fully healed either. I thought it was over. I thought I'd built my new life, established my boundaries, found my peace. I was wrong. 6 months after I moved to my new town, I got a call from Dale. "Ethan, you sitting down?" "What happened?" "Devin and Harper filed a civil lawsuit against you. They're claiming you engaged in a malicious campaign to destroy their reputations and livelihoods. They're suing for damages." I felt rage ignite in my chest. "Are you kidding me?" "I wish I was. They filed in their county, which means you'll need to respond there. Margaret says it's bullshit, that they have no case, but you'll still need to defend yourself. They tried to steal my life and now they're suing me for defending myself. Basically, yeah, it's a Hail Mary. They're desperate. They've lost everything and this is their last shot at getting something back." I hung up and immediately called Margaret. "Tell me about this lawsuit." "It's weak," she said. "They're claiming emotional distress, loss of income, reputational damage. But Ethan, everything you did was in response to their documented attempt to defraud you. You were defending yourself, and you never did anything illegal. So, we'll win? Probably, but it'll cost you time and money and energy, which is probably what they're hoping for. Sometimes these suits aren't about winning. They're about making the other person hurt. Then let's make them regret filing it." The case dragged on for months. Depositions, document production, legal motions. Every week brought new paperwork, new demands, new headaches. But it also brought something else: discovery. Because in a civil lawsuit, both sides get to request documents from the other, which meant I got to see exactly what my children had been planning, in their own words, with no filter. The documents were devastating. Emails between Devin and Riley discussing how to handle the dad situation. Text messages between Harper and Tripp about selling my belongings. A detailed spreadsheet showing how they'd planned to divide my assets. They'd even discussed the possibility that I might resist and how to counter that resistance. If he fights it, we can argue diminished capacity. Everyone will believe us over him. Reading those documents was like being stabbed repeatedly. Each one revealed another layer of their betrayal, another moment where they'd consciously chosen to hurt me. But it also gave me ammunition. Margaret filed a countersuit. Fraud, theft, attempted elder abuse, emotional distress. We asked for actual damages, punitive damages, legal fees. "We're not going to win a huge payout," Margaret explained. "They don't have money anymore, but we'll win the principal. And more importantly, we'll make sure a judge officially declares what they did was wrong." The trial was scheduled for November. I spent months preparing, reviewing documents, rehearsing testimony. I wanted to get this right. The morning of the trial, I woke up early in my new house, put on my best suit, and drove back to the county where I used to live. The courthouse was the same one where the guardianship hearing had been held. Same building, different courtroom. The irony wasn't lost on me. Devin and Harper were there with their lawyer, a different one this time. Someone cheaper, probably all they could afford. Riley wasn't there. According to Dale, she'd refused to participate, said she wanted nothing to do with it. Smart of her. The judge was different too. Judge Robert Klein, older, with white hair, and a no-nonsense expression. The trial took 3 days. Devin's lawyer tried to paint me as a vengeful father who'd destroyed his children's lives out of spite. He presented my media interview, my restraining orders, the collapse of their businesses as evidence of my malicious campaign. Margaret countered with the truth. The forged documents, the overheard conversation, the storage unit full of my stolen property, the guardianship petition, the pattern of lies and manipulation. She also presented the documents from Discovery, the emails, the texts, the spreadsheet. She read them aloud in court, making sure everyone heard exactly what my children had planned. Devin tried to defend himself on the stand. He claimed they were just concerned, that they'd made mistakes, but never meant any harm, that my reaction had been disproportionate. It didn't work. Judge Klein saw through it immediately. "Mr. Marrow," he said, addressing Devin, "you and your sister attempted to defraud your father, filed a frivolous guardianship petition, and are now claiming you're the victims? That's not how this works." He ruled in my favor on every count. He dismissed Devin and Harper's lawsuit. He awarded me damages on my countersuit, not much, they didn't have much to take, and ordered them to pay my legal fees. Furthermore, Judge Klein said, "I'm entering a permanent injunction prohibiting the defendants from contacting Mr. Ethan Marrow in any way, for any reason, in perpetuity. If they violate this order, they will face contempt charges and possible jail time." He banged his gavel. It was over. For real, this time. Outside the courthouse, Margaret shook my hand. "How do you feel?" "Tired." "You should feel victorious. You won. Completely. Decisively. Their lawsuit was dismissed, your countersuit prevailed, and you have a permanent order protecting you from them." "I know. But winning doesn't feel like I thought it would." She studied me for a moment. "Ethan, you spent 2 years fighting your own children. That takes a toll. Give yourself time to process it." "Yeah." I drove home to my new town, to my new house, to my new life. I poured myself a drink and sat on my back porch watching the sunset. I'd won. She was right about that. I'd protected myself, fought back, and emerged victorious. My children had lost their businesses, their reputations, their relationship with me, and now a court case that had cost them whatever money they had left. They were broken, finished, and I'd done it to them. I should have felt satisfied, vindicated, righteous. Instead, I felt empty, because at the end of the day, I hadn't just destroyed my children's lives. I'd lost my children. The people who should have been my family were now permanent strangers, barred by court order from ever contacting me again. I'd won the war, but lost something more important in the process. Except, no, that wasn't right. I hadn't lost them. They'd lost themselves when they decided to betray me. I'd just responded to their betrayal. This wasn't my fault. It was theirs. I repeated that to myself until I believed it. A year passed, then another. I built my new life piece by piece. I joined a local woodworking club, started volunteering at a community center teaching basic engineering and construction skills to teenagers, made new friends who didn't know my history. I dated a woman named Patricia for 6 months. She was a retired teacher, smart and funny and kind. But when she started asking about my family, about whether I had children, I found myself unable to tell her the truth. I told her I had 2 children who I wasn't close with. She asked why. I said it was complicated. She pressed. I ended the relationship. Some wounds were too deep to share with people who hadn't earned that level of trust. Life went on. Quiet, stable, lonely sometimes, but peaceful. Then, 3 years after the trial, I got a letter. It arrived in a plain envelope with no return address. The postmark was from the town where I used to live. I almost threw it away without opening it, thinking it was junk mail, but something made me open it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten. "Dad, I know I'm not supposed to contact you. I know there's a court order. I'm breaking it by sending this letter, and I don't care. Cancer, stage 4. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months, probably less. I'm not writing to ask for anything. I'm not asking you to forgive me or to see me or to care. I just wanted you to know, and I wanted to tell you one more time that I'm sorry. For everything. For what we did. For what we planned. For being the kind of person who could look at their own father and see only an obstacle. I've had 3 years to think about it. 3 years to understand what we took from you. It's been the worst punishment imaginable. and I deserved every second of it. I hope you're happy in your new life. I hope you found peace. I hope you're surrounded by people who deserve you. Riley. I read the letter 3 times, looking for manipulation, for guilt trips, for some angle I was missing. I sat with that letter for a week, thinking about what to do, whether to respond, whether Riley was telling the truth, or if this was another scheme. Finally, I called Margaret Chen. If I respond to a letter from one of my children, does that violate the court order? Technically, yes. The order prohibits them from contacting you and you from contacting them. Why? What happened? I told her about the letter. She was quiet for a long moment. Ethan, I can't give you legal advice on this, but as someone who's known you for years, this is your decision. Whatever you choose, make sure it's what you can live with. I thought about that. What could I live with? I thought about Riley as a child, the little girl who used to help her mother in the garden, the teenager who'd been so excited about going to college, the adult who'd become a stranger I didn't recognize. I thought about the person who'd planned to erase me from my own life. I thought about the person who'd written this letter. They were the same person, both true, both real. In the end, I did nothing. I didn't respond to the letter. I didn't visit. I didn't reach out. Not because I didn't care, but because caring wasn't enough to rebuild what had been destroyed. Some things, once broken, stayed broken. 6 months later, Dale called me. Riley died. Funeral's this weekend. Thought you should know. Thanks for telling me. You going? No. You sure? Last chance to make peace with this. I made peace with it 3 years ago when the judge ruled in my favor. Riley made her choices. I made mine. I didn't go to the funeral. I didn't send flowers. I didn't acknowledge it in any way. I just continued living my life. But that night, I sat on my porch with a drink and thought about my daughter, not the adult who'd betrayed me, the child who'd existed before greed and selfishness poisoned everything. I let myself grieve for that child, for the relationship that could have been, for the family I'd thought I had. Then I let it go. Life moved on. Years passed. I got older. My new town became my real home. The people I'd met became my real friends. Occasionally, I'd hear updates about Devin and Harper through Dale. Devin was working construction now, had moved to another state. Harper was still in the area, divorced, working retail. They'd rebuilt small lives from the rubble, not the lives they'd imagined, but lives nonetheless. I felt nothing about it. No satisfaction, no regret, nothing. They'd become strangers, people who used to matter but didn't anymore, and I was okay with that. One morning, I woke up and realized I hadn't thought about any of it in months. The betrayal, the revenge, the lawsuit, the empty victory. It had finally become history instead of an open wound. I got up, made coffee, and went to my workshop. I was building a rocking chair, something for my porch, just for the pleasure of creating something with my hands. My father's tools were hanging on the wall, cleaned and organized, ready to use. I picked up the level, the one with brass fittings that he'd shown me how to use when I was 8 years old. Level means honest. His voice echoed in my memory. I set it on the piece I was working on. Watched the bubble settle exactly in the center. Perfect, true, honest. I smiled and went back to work. I thought the story was over, but stories have a way of coming back around. I was at the hardware store picking up supplies when I heard a voice behind me. Ethan? I turned. It took me a moment to recognize her. Mrs. Kowalski, my old neighbor. She looked older, smaller, but her eyes were the same. Gloria? Wow. What are you doing out here? Visiting my sister. She lives 3 towns over. What are you doing here? I live here now. Bought a place about 5 years ago. After everything that happened? Because of everything that happened. She nodded, understanding. I felt terrible about that whole situation. I believed what your children told me about you. I should have known better. You didn't know. That was the point of their lies. We stood there awkwardly for a moment. Then she said, "You should know. Devin came by the old neighborhood last month." Something cold settled in my stomach. Why? He wanted to know if anyone had your new address. Said he needed to talk to you about something important. No one would tell him. We all remembered what happened. Good. Ethan, he looked bad. Really bad. I don't think he's doing well. That's not my problem, Gloria. I know. I just thought you should know he's looking for you. We said our goodbyes. I finished my shopping and drove home, but Mrs. Kowalski's words stayed with me. Devin was looking for me. After 5 years of silence, after court orders and restraining orders and permanent injunctions, he was trying to find me. I called Dale. "Did you tell anyone where I live?" "What?" "No. Why?" "Devin's apparently trying to find me." Shit. You want me to remind him about the court order? Can you do that without telling him where I am? I'll try. 2 days later, Dale called back. I talked to Devin, told him if he contacts you or tries to find you, he'll be in contempt of court. He said he understood. But Ethan? He sounded desperate. I don't know what he wants, but it's something big. I don't care what he wants. I know. I'm just telling you. I doubled my security after that. Better cameras, better locks. A security system that would alert me if anyone approached my property. I wasn't scared of Devin. I just didn't want to deal with him. But 3 weeks later, he found me anyway. I came home from the gym on a Saturday afternoon, and there he was, sitting on my porch steps like he had every right to be there. He looked terrible, gaunt, older than his years. His clothes were worn, his face unshaven. Nothing like the confident real estate agent who used to drive an Audi. "You're violating a court order," I said, stopping at the bottom of my driveway. "I know. I'm sorry. I need 5 minutes." "You had 5 years to stay away from me. That should have been enough time to say everything you needed to say." "Please, Dad." That word, Dad. I hadn't heard it in so long that it sounded foreign coming from his mouth. "I'm calling the police." "Fine, do it. But let me say this first." He stood up, and I could see how thin he'd become. Harper died. Last month. I felt nothing. Just a cold, empty space where emotion should have been. "Cancer," Devin continued. "Like Riley. Stage 4 by the time they found it. She went fast." "I'm sorry to hear that." "Are you? What do you want, Devin?" "I don't know." He laughed, bitter and hollow. "I spent years hating you for what you did to us, for destroying our lives, for being so goddamn righteous about it. But then Riley died, and I'm alone with nothing, and I realized—" He stopped, wiped his face. "You realized what?" "That you were right. About all of it. We were monsters. We looked at you like you were a problem to solve instead of a person. Instead of our father. And you responded exactly the way we deserved. If you came here for absolution, you're not getting it. I didn't. I came because I wanted you to know that I understand now. What we took from you. What you took from us. The whole ugly circle of it." "Is that all?" "No. I came to tell you that I'm done hating you. That I don't blame you anymore. That if I could go back and change everything, I would. But I can't. So I'm just going to live with the consequences of my choices and leave you alone." He started walking toward his car, a beat-up Honda that had seen better days. "Devin." He stopped. I should have stayed silent. Should have let him leave. Should have maintained the boundaries I'd spent years building. But seeing him there, broken and defeated, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation. Just a small crack in the wall I'd built around myself. "I'm sorry about Harper," I said. "And about Riley." He nodded. "Yeah, me too. But that doesn't change anything between us." "I know." He got in his car and drove away. I stood in my driveway for a long time after he left, thinking about the conversation, about the price we'd all paid for betrayal and revenge. They'd lost their businesses, their reputations, their relationships with me. Devin was a ghost of who he used to be. And me? I'd won. I'd protected myself, fought back, emerged victorious. But I was alone. No children, no family, just my principles and my father's tools, and a house full of empty rooms. Was that victory, or just another kind of loss? I went inside and poured myself a drink, sat on my couch, thought about calling Devin back, about extending some kind of olive branch. Then I remembered the conversation I'd overheard. He lived too long anyway. I remembered the forged documents, the storage unit, the guardianship petition, the lawsuit. I remembered every moment of betrayal, every lie, every instance where my children had chosen greed over decency, and I knew I'd made the right choice. Some bridges deserved to be burned. Some people didn't deserve forgiveness, no matter how much they'd suffered. My children had made their choices. I'd made mine, and I could live with that. The next morning, I got up, made coffee, and went to my workshop. I had projects to finish, a life to live, things to build. The past was the past. It didn't own me anymore. I was free. And that, finally, was enough. But the universe wasn't quite done with me yet. 3 months after Devin's visit, I was at the community center teaching a woodworking class when I noticed a teenager watching from the doorway. 17 maybe, tall and thin, with familiar eyes. After class, he approached me. "Mr. Marrow, can I talk to you?" "Sure. What's your name?" "Jesse Nolan." Nolan, Riley's married name. "I'm Riley's son," he said. "Your grandson." I'd forgotten about him. Riley had been pregnant when everything happened, had the baby during the first year of our estrangement. I'd never met him, never even seen a picture. "What do you want?" "I just wanted to meet you. Mom talked about you before she died. Said you were the smartest person she knew, that you could build anything." "Your mother and I weren't on good terms." "I know. She told me what she did, what they all did. She said you had every right to hate them." I studied this kid, my grandson, and tried to figure out what he wanted, what angle he was playing. "I'm not here for anything," he said, reading my expression. "I'm not trying to get money or an inheritance or whatever. My dad's useless. My uncle and aunt are gone. You're the only family I have left, and I wanted to know who you were." "I'm nobody, just an old man who's good with tools." "Mom said you were more than that. She said you taught her to see problems as solvable puzzles, that you never gave up on anything you believed in. Your mother also planned to have me declared incompetent and shipped to Nevada, so maybe her judgment wasn't the best. She knew that. She hated herself for it. Spent the last 3 years of her life trying to become someone better." "You want to learn woodworking?" I heard myself ask. His face lit up. "Really?" "I teach classes here every Saturday. Show up on time, pay attention, and follow instructions. Think you can do that?" "Yes, absolutely." "All right then. See you next week." He left, practically bouncing with excitement. I stood there wondering what the hell I'd just done. After years of cutting ties, of maintaining boundaries, of protecting myself from anyone with the last name Marrow or Nolan, I'd just invited my grandson into my life. Maybe I was getting soft in my old age. Or maybe, after years of winning battles, I was finally ready to find some kind of peace. Jesse showed up the next Saturday, and the Saturday after that, and the one after that. He was a good kid, quiet, focused, quick to learn. He reminded me of myself at that age, curious about how things worked, patient with details, willing to make mistakes and learn from them. We didn't talk much about his mother or the past. We just worked with our hands, built things, and let the shared silence say what words couldn't. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't reconciliation. It was something smaller and simpler, a chance for something new to grow in the ruins of what had been destroyed. Maybe that was enough.